Hi all, I have another very instructive game in the Vienna game to show you today. So let's have a look. Vasily Smyslov against Lev Polugaevsky, 1961 USSR Championship, B edition. There were two that year, I believe. So e4 from Vasily Smyslov, e5 from Polugaevsky, knight c3. Apparently Smyslov had the intention to employ an old and half forgotten continuation. So knight c3, quite rare to play this. Knight f6, we have g3. So this is a quiet but solid continuation. d5, e takes d, knight takes d5. So both sides have a semi-open file with pressure, potentially, pressure points. We have bishop g2, bishop e6 protecting that knight. On knight takes c3 here, white can capture a pawn towards the center, and the semi-open b file could be interesting for white later to use, as well as the pressure on e5. So this position with these files, it seems pleasant enough. In fact, white might be able to get a real edge here, for example like this, undoubling the pawns if black's not careful and plays like that a bit casually. White's getting a small edge out of the opening. So bishop e6, maintaining the tension, not taking on c3. Knight f3, knight c6, white castles, bishop e7, rook e1, bishop f6. The slight downside of this move, there's a kind of weakness of the last move here, it's not covering the c5 square. In fact, this idea of c5 is actually exploited here by this next move, knight e4. It can jump into c5 now. If we look at alternatives for a moment, why bishop f6? If knight takes here with f6, that's weakening the light squares, and white can get a very pleasant position, for example like this. Taking on e5 is one option. Also a4, just simply a4, keeping the pawn isolated, is another option with a nice position. That's a very, very nice position indeed, with that nice blockade square on e4. White's getting a very pleasant position indeed, structurally at least. Well, in some respects. The nice blockade, I prefer white here myself. So anyway, bishop f6. So we have knight e4, black castles, d3, bishop e7, going back to cover c5. a3, does black dare play f5? Knight b6, no. f5 is too weakening here, it seems. Knight e to g5 hitting e6 is a classic. If black has to give up both bishops, this two bishops versus the two knights is going to be favouring white. These bishops can also be used like this, just bishop takes to win the e-pawn with a big advantage for white. So black has to tread carefully. Knight b6. Now b4, supporting that c5 square for knight c5 potentially. Bishop g4, c3, stopping any knight d4 from black. a6, h3, bishop h5. Now knight c5. So it seems as though white's getting a really nice position here. The position's evolving in white's favour. A lot more pressure. There's a pressure point on b7, e5. This bishop could be kicked potentially. Very, very nice. Rook b8, protecting b7. Pretty passive. If black plays bishop takes c5, b takes, knight d7, d4 is nice. For example, what does black do here? If bishop takes, queen f6, bishop g2 is possible, and white's got a fantastic position with the bishop pair again against the two knights. Black cannot win material here. For example, like this, bishop e3, white's getting a really nice position out of this. Really nice pressure here. I mean, black can try and win material, but the pressure is huge. For example, like this, it's very, very pleasant indeed. And here, if queen takes d4, there's bishop takes c6 winning material, because the knight's hanging in some lines. So for example like that, it doesn't matter about the self pin. White's got enough to hold onto that bishop and get enormous pressure on g7 as well. So these are all pretty dangerous variations from black for black. So on bishop takes c5, yeah, giving up both bishops potentially, it's a no-go area. So rook b8, a necessary and passive move. Bishop b2. So white's building up here actually for d4 potentially. Bishop d6, queen b3, unpinning the knight. Knight d7, now d4 here. Yes, this looks like really nice stuff. This bishop is temporarily blocked in, but the pressure points on the dark squares are intensifying here. Rook e8, rook e3, e takes, c takes d4. Rook takes e3, queen takes e3. This is already a rather magnificent position for white. Look at that entrenched knight on c5. Look at the bishops fianchettoed very nicely. e5 and c5, very nice for white. a5, b5, we have knight e7. Rook e1, knight d5. The queen goes to b3. Knight goes back. Knight d3. This is really, really nice idea to go into that e5 square to put more pressure on f7. In fact, both knights can have a go. If this bishop can be taken out as well as part of that, then f7 will be loose later. So that's a clear and imminent target, even though it's protected at the moment. f7 is a slight soft spot in black's position, given white's big control over the e5 square. So knight b6, knight fe5, really impressive position. Very nice. a4, the queen drops back to c2. This is a pawn liability, though, that there is a price associated with a4 here. But otherwise, you know, white's ready for things like g4, knight g6, and knight e5 soon. So maybe that's out of irritation. Queen c2, bishop goes here. If knight fd5 here, then knight c5 is actually strong. For example, this position is very impressive for white. It's pretty dominating positioning. Let's have a look. Bishop g6, though, pretty committal, giving up that bishop. And now we have knight c5 looking at b7 for the moment. Knight bd5 blocking white's attack on b7. If c6 here, then white can just afford to take that pawn and come back and consolidate. Yes, that's possible to consolidate with a big advantage. If rook a8 instead, yeah, white can take that pawn, and that's no big deal. Bishop takes c5 instead, then white's playing for c6, and bishop takes. It's a beautiful position with the bishop pair again. So there's not too many options here. So knight bd5, giving up the a pawn, yes. Queen takes a4. Black's starting to crumble here and give up hope, it seems. b6, knight d3, bishop f8. Knight e5, really nice entrenched knight. And without that light square bishop, f7 is more tender than before. Queen d6, knight c6, rook e8. Rook e5, knight e7. Queen c4, the queen's starting to target f7 again. Knight f5. We have rook takes, knight takes. Now knight e5, so both are now targeting f7. Now black's in real trouble here, to say the least. Very, very difficult to play this position. After queen e7, guess what white plays now? So white to play here, if I give you 5 seconds to pause the video. Okay, knight takes f7. Yes, this bishop is without a counterpart, and it could be wonderfully celebrated after queen takes with bishop d5. Just to put that on the board, this pins the queen. Pretty non-controversial. So queen e1 check was played, and we have the bishop just dropping back to f1. Now black's in a desperate state. He plays knight takes g3. This doesn't really do much with good play from white, which is knight e5 check first before doing anything. And now taking this knight, and black hasn't got anything here. After king h1, the game ended here. Well, white's a piece up. So, for example, knight f6, queen d3, that's useful for that knight on e5, and the bishop supporting that as well. So this is just consolidating for white. So I'll take you back to the game ends position. So yes, really nice positional play from Vasily Smyslov, using this half-forgotten variation. So that was the intention for this game. And that's very important nowadays with the huge amount of opening theory. This is actually a weapon with a difference nowadays. If you want to play something less theoretical, on move 2, knight c3, the Vienna game, there's a free interactive course at Chessable for trainable variations in this very, very powerful, modest free g3 system. So free g3, taking out a lot of the risks, a lot of the controversy, a lot of the drama is taken out with free g3, and you can play superpositionally just like Smyslov in your own games with this surprise weapon. I hope you check out that free course. Okay, thanks very much.